All right.
Okay, now we're starting.
Okay.
It's officially 8:35. 5 minutes is a totally optimal runway for this kind of thing. All right. Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're talking about a topic that I don't know. It's something which I think I've thought a lot about, anxiety. I mean, in life in general, as we're going to discuss tonight, I'm not a very anxious person. I'm actually the opposite, and it's
He could use a little
yeah,
anxiety.
it's a big problem, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. So, but I get it. I get it. I have many students over the course of years, and they present with anxiety, with nervousness, really a nervousness that sometimes I can't really understand so well. So this, whether or not you're on the I'm too nervous side and I'm too anxious side, or you're on the maybe not anxious enough side, which you're gonna see in a moment is really a thing and a problem. That's what we're going to talk about over the course of the evening, instead of like starting out with Torah, because in dealing with worry and dealing with what it is that faces us over the course, the lions and the tigers and the bears, oh my, over the course of our lifetimes. Of course, we have a ton. We have a ton in our literature that speaks about this, and beautiful stories and beautiful memras and sayings. And so I'll intersperse that stuff as it comes up, as it pops in. But how do you want to get started?
Well, let's start by defining anxiety. What is anxiety?
Sure, because I don't even know.
I think you do know.
I know, I do. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and you have been anxious in your life.
I know. Okay, so.
Okay, and by the way, I don't think I'm a very anxious person, but I can relate to it because I happen to have a phobia. Some of you know this. I have an awful dog phobia. And
just to be clear, she's not scared of awful dogs. She's scared of all dogs, like even the little Chihuahua types. No matter what it is, she'll drop our children in the middle of the street and like, see you later. That's where we're at.
I have. So it's something that I actually believe I should be dealing with. I'm going to be very open here because it's intellectually dishonest of me to help others with anxiety when I have not dealt with my own. So it's on my list, but I haven't gotten there yet. But I can relate to what it feels like to feel that sense of irrational fear and how strong it is. And actually, so I'll just jump right into the definition. Anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure, shaky. We will feel our heart racing. We could sweat. There's all sorts of physical manifestations. And then people with anxiety disorders can have like recurring intrusive thoughts or concerns that really will impact their daily functioning. They might avoid certain situations because of their worry, like me and dogs. Anybody here who has a dog who had to ever come to their house, I'm sure I embarrassed myself by telling you first, I can't come in.
Or I embarrass myself for her. I'm sorry I'm married to somebody who has a phobia. But there's also the COVID type anxieties that I think
but before we get to that, I think we should just talk for a minute because I just want to kind of frame anxiety. It's not all evil. Anxiety is actually productive in some ways. There are both pros and cons to anxiety. Excessive worry and excessive anxiety is probably an ineffective coping strategy that we all use. But then there is a healthy dose of anxiety, which I think we need in our lives, right? If we didn't have anxiety about anything, then we wouldn't
get anything done. So I want to introduce you to, is it okay? I want to introduce you to this character. Okay. Now, if you've been in my office, not a lot of you have been in my office in shul, but this sits prominently on top of my desk. Unfortunately, I ignore it, but let me explain what it is. Okay. So there's a man on the internet. His name is Tim Urban. He's great. He's got a blog. I've actually quoted his blog. My whole Take 10 for Torah podcast was based off of a post and a drasha that I gave based on one of his posts. Great stuff. It's called Wait, But Why? Okay. So I don't want to go into everything he talks about. It's really good stuff. Very deep, philosophical, wonderful. Now, he has a long post about procrastination. So I don't know about you, but procrastination is probably my biggest issue. It's a really huge problem. And I wait till the last minute because I think like I'm going to do the best work in the last minute. And that's when I can finally think solidly about something.
No, that is not why you wait till the last minute.
That's also why.
You wait till the last minute because you procrastinate. You happen to say that you do your best work at the last minute, which may or may not be true.
Okay. All right. Fine.
It's not like a planned strategy of waiting to the last minute.
Right. But I guess I haven't suffered enough from it. So he has a long post about why procrastinators procrastinate, and it's really entertaining and it's really funny. He surmises that really we have this like rational decision maker in our head. Like we want to activate the every minute for what it's worth, and we want to get the best possible and most productive, let's say, afternoon possible, for sure. But he calls it, we have the instant gratification monkey that takes over for the rational decision making. And this monkey is really cute and really adorable, but it says, oh my gosh, like, look at that video on YouTube. It is so interesting. I mean, how do they make balloons? Balloons, they're so thin and they expand. It's amazing. And so you want to check that out. I'm sure one day you could use that in a drasha, how they make balloons. And so you get down the spiral of YouTube balloons, and it's so constructive. And I'm learning about physics, and I'm learning about all of these things. It's great. Now, enters the panic monster, because the monkey, the instant gratification monkey, is scared of no one. He is scared of nothing, and he will literally waste your entire afternoon. But the only thing he's scared of is the panic monster. The panic monster, and you can see the face, it's like frightening, absolutely frightening, shows up and tells the monkey, we got to get this done now. There's 2 hours left to the shear. You really need to focus. You really need to prepare. And then something else comes up and you get a phone call and there's another emergency. And then the panic monster makes the monkey realize it's time to get out and let the rational decision maker, let the adults work. Okay. So I bought the panic monster because the whole point of his post is for you to teach yourself how
to induce panic.
Right. How to create anxiety, how to remind yourself that at every moment you should have not like a bad anxiety, but a pressure, a sense, a feeling that I could actually be more productive in my day and get a lot more done because I have this panic monster involved. So this
I think the idea is that you have the panic at a more appropriate time to get it done and not at the last minute.
Right. Not at the time that's going to like affect
because the natural panic sets in the last hour. But if you can get it done,
like whether or not we're going to light Shabbos candles any particular Shabbos because I waited till too late to stuff like that. So this is, I call this the positive panic, the positive anxiety, where it motivates you to get things done and motivates you to accomplish. So that's, I guess, the good one.
Right. So there's a healthy amount of anxiety. I don't know if it's a good, good and a bad, and they're qualitatively different. I think it's, it depends on sort of how excessive it is and how productive it versus how productive it is.
Got it.
So it's something to keep in mind. Anxiety is not all evil. We need it. We just have to learn when it's appropriate and when it's excessive and what to do when it is excessive, how to respond. So I think that's basically what we're going to be talking about in the next little while. Before we get into specifics, I think it's just helpful to discuss some generally helpful protective things for anxiety, which are fairly obvious, I think, but we all have less of the excessive worry that really gets in our way when we do certain things, like appropriate self-care, a good night's sleep. We could probably think back to a day where you were exhausted and you worried more about things than you generally do. Good night's sleep, good eating habits, good exercise habits. These are all things that really.
So this is that pasuk. So there's a very, very well-known pasuk. I've heard it, David Pelkovitz. I've heard this pasuk from him. Probably the first time I ever heard it many, 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 many years ago was from David, but I've seen it since. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Pasuk says, "Daga b'levish." Right? If you have worry in the heart of a person, so yashchena. So yashchena is a really interesting word. Yashchena, I think we're going to get to this in a minute. Yashchena, Rashi has two interpretations. Either it means yasichena, you got to remove it from your mind and somehow distract yourself, or yasichena la'achirim, you should talk to other people. So we'll talk about this, I think, but to distract yourself, to talk about it with others, like to figure it out. That's one way of understanding what it means and what the pasuk is describing and telling us to do. But the end of the pasuk, I think, is speaking to your point. The end of the pasuk is v'davar tov yisamchena. Let a good thing convert it into gladness. Transition into something which is a little bit more positive. Here, of course, the Mefarshim talk about Torah study and learn that, but I guess taking a nap and self-care and a little bit of relaxation would also fulfill this end of the pasuk. Daiga b'levish. So then, davar tov yisamchena. Have more davar tovs in your life.
So other dvarim tovim, besides for self-care, are social relationships, which we've talked about the last several couches, I believe. Maintaining routines is something that's just helpful to us and keeps us grounded and settled. Getting fresh air every day, exercising and staying active. Those are all kind of protective factors for anxiety. The more of those we can have on a regular basis in our lives, the more protective it'll be to our anxiety becoming excessive and really getting in the way.
I find exercise to be like that. If I exercise that day, the whole day, it's a whole better day. It's like a weird thing.
I don't.
No?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have a colleague who suffers from pretty severe anxiety, and she's a big exercise person too. And she says that is the exercise every day is somehow helps her fight it. It's when she's exercising, she's feeling like she's fighting her anxiety.
I'm feeling like I'm in charge. Like there's a part of my day that's like me time. It's me actually in my calendar, which procrastination notwithstanding, pretty decent with. I have different colors for like my different roles, different things that I'm doing. And there's this really bright orange that I call, the calendar is called me time. I don't even know if I ever showed this to you because it's me. It's not, it's none of your business, frankly. So me time is that particular color, like a weird off, very star color that when I look at my calendar, I'm like, oh, me time. And that's exercise. And like in that way, I feel I have this bright moment of ownership of my day. And I think that does affect.
Is that all you do? All me time means exercise?
No.
There's nothing else in me time?
No, there is other me time, but I don't really do it.
Oh, okay. You need the panic monster.
Yeah. I could. Maybe it should be bright red. That should be the color I should choose. This guy's adorable. I have to tell you, this was not cheap. This guy's got a whatever. We'll talk about it.
And it's not used that often either.
Well, I may have put it above eye level in the office, and that might be my problem. Now that it's taken down, I have to like hang it on my screen.
Well, every time he's doing something at the last minute, my question is, where was Panic Monster? I don't know.
Yeah.
He keeps disappearing when we need him.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, so when you were talking about that me time though, and that you feel that that's time that you have control of and that helps you, that kind of brings us to our next point. And I think that a very common source of anxiety for all of us, whether it's in a more moderate level or a more excessive level, is anxiety about uncertainty. When we're not sure how things are going to pan out, when we're not sure what life is going to bring us, when there's a situation and we're not sure how or if it will be resolved.
Pan out.
No pun intended.
No pan intended. No pan intended. Yeah.
So that's a tremendous source of anxiety for a lot of people. And obviously COVID and this pandemic feeds right into that tension and that anxiety. And I think I just want to speak about that for a few minutes. I think it's very important. We cannot expect 100% certainty pretty much ever. Is there anything we can expect 100% certainty about?
Death in Texas. But that doesn't help in a pandemic. I think that's exactly the problem. Okay, go on. Yeah.
So especially in a pandemic, we can't expect 100% certainty. We can't expect that we won't get COVID. We can't expect that, nobody we know. People are worried about their jobs. People are worried about finances. People are worried about their elderly parents. There have been so many uncertain elements of what we've been going through. And it creates a certain stress, a certain worry, a certain anxiety that's sometimes hard to deal with. I think the first thing is our expectations, managing our expectations and knowing that we cannot have 100% certainty. If we expect it and we demand it, we will not get it. So that's kind of number one.
This is reminiscent of that famous Chazon Ish, right? So there's this belief out there that, if you believe, bitachon, then everything will be good. Like everything will be okay. Now, the Chazon Ish makes very clear in his Sefer Emunah Ubitachon, he says, like, that's not actually accurate. Believing doesn't mean things will be good. Belief is the idea that you are submitting that everything in the world comes from God. And not that it will be good in the moment, but that it's purposeful and that it's important to happen. It's not random, it's not accidental, it's not arbitrary. And that I guess is the sense of like, I can't control it, but that's okay, because at least we submit to a belief that someone else has at least knowledge and the ability to control it.
And what is helpful to us, that is, I think, probably very helpful. And I do think that belief and emunah, knowing that there's a higher power.
Are religious people more or less anxious? Has somebody ever researched that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
They're
We'll have to ask David Pelkovitz.
They're more OCD, but less anxious about life. Interesting. Maybe.
But I have heard
Baruch Hashem. That's it. Baruch Hashem. That's the be all end all.
But I have heard people say that emunah and just knowing that there is a higher order and having davening in your life is something that does help people manage their anxiety. So there's something to it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is that while we can't control everything, there are things we can control. We can control our responsible behavior, specifically with regard to the pandemic. We know that if we're reasonably cautious and we take the advice of the health experts, then that's what we can do. And knowing that we can do that and that's in our control is helpful in reducing our anxiety. There are also other parts of our lives not related to the pandemic that even during the pandemic we can always control. The strategies you mentioned above of self-care and social relationships and routines. But also there are other things that we can, sort of take control of in a way that can be helpful and almost soothing to us, making a to-do list and getting through it, having a list of joyful activities to engage in, reaching out to the less fortunate is something that's always helpful and makes us feel better and even less anxious, giving ourselves credit for the things that we are doing and are accomplishing, even if they're small. Mindfulness activities, which I'll talk a little bit about a little later, which is something that some people find very, very helpful. Limiting exposure to the news is certainly something you can control. And Mike,
it was great that I always forget how to pronounce his name. John Karasinski, is that how you pronounce his name? He had the Good News show. And then he got bought up by like some big cable operation, and that's it. No more good news, I think. But just focusing on the good news, the stress and the tension from like social media. I in a drasha like a few months ago already, I talked about how I was done with Facebook, or at least taking a Facebook hiatus. And the doom scrolling, right? They call it doom scrolling when you just keep going and this bad news. And I didn't like who the feed was making me out to be based on these algorithms. And what I did was I actually want to, thank person I got to say, Sarah Feldschreiber gave me this idea. Just take it off your phone. Take it off your phone, because like your phone, it's in your face and it's constantly there. And I miss a lot of notifications. I miss things every once in a while. I look at it on my computer, but that's it. It's relegated to like me opting in as opposed to it attacking me all of the time, me getting stuck in it. So like that's really helped.
Yeah,
it really has.
Kind of like I think the Bernie meme did that for people. It was kind of something to like laugh at and be funny about. That wasn't, although he was wearing a mask and stuff, but it wasn't. So it kind of did that. It was a fun element.
Yeah. I meant to make a picture of Bernie sitting in shul, right under the flowers. I didn't get around to it. I meant to put Bernie in shul. Whatever. Okay, it's fine. Next time.
Another thing that can help is just thinking about things that you've overcome in the past, ways you've exhibited strength and coping skills, and which one of those you can implement, now, and how that can possibly help. And just continue to always focus on the things we can control, which is, not necessarily what's going on around us, but how we respond to it, which is what is always in our control and what we're going to continue to talk about. So that's kind of, some things that can help specific to what's going on with the here and now of the pandemic. But sometimes, the response is, before we can even get to a place where we can respond appropriately to the worry we're having, the physical sensations kind of get in the way. If the worry or the anxiety is really getting to us in that moment, sometimes we're just too worked up to almost rationally deal or rationally respond or rationally cope. So there are some just very simple techniques that can be done to get us to a place where we can respond appropriately. We can practice these, but I don't think we should, because I'm just not so good at them.
What are they?
Like things like a deep breathing exercise or a guided relaxation exercise or a mindfulness exercise.
I was at a rabbi convention, and there was a deep breathing exercise. And 3 breaths in, the guy next to me was snoring so loud. I'm afraid that we would do that, but it's
funny because I was at a Rebbitzin thing. There was a mindfulness exercise, but I'm just not so good. I'm not so good at doing these. I'd much rather open an app and have it done there. So we're not going to do that. Okay, we'll save our exercise for something else.
Everybody breathe deeply. It's a big thing.
But the important thing about these 3 things, by the way, the mindfulness, the concept of mindfulness, and if you're interested in any of those 3 things, you could do a search on YouTube and you could find exercises and it will guide you. But the concept behind mindfulness is kind of noticing your thoughts, but at the same but kind of directing yourself back to the here and now, to things, to more like things that you either see or hear.
So you can convince yourself based on stimuli to stop being.
It's not convincing yourself. It's like, I'm having this thought, maybe I'll fail my test, but I am going to stare at the mezuzah I'm going to continue to look at the mezuzah on the wall and notice its shape and notice the shine of the silver on the mezuzah on the wall and notice where it is in relation to the rest of the wall. It's not like you're pushing the thought out of your mind. You're kind of noticing it. And every time it comes, you're kind of redirecting back to the here and now and what you're noticing with your senses in a very non-judgmental way.
So it's like that Rashi, distracting myself by focusing on a different thing.
Right. So there are exercises like that kind of just help you. It's relaxing and it helps you. It helps show you that you can just notice the thoughts without getting worked up about them.
So what do you think from a anxiety perspective and from everything you're talking about? That famous Gemara with Rabbi Akiva. I love this Gemara. I've quoted it 100 times and everybody knows it. But I think there's a secret to it that I've shared before, but I don't remember where and to who. The Gemara talks about Rabbi Akiva walking with the rabbis, and they're all generally stressed out. The whole destruction of the Beis Hamikdash thing, that's been very sad for them, and they hear the Romans rejoicing. And the Romans are rejoicing, and everybody's all upset and start to cry because the Romans who vanquished the Jews, how could they have won and how could we have lost? It's just not okay. So Rabbi Akiva laughs, and Rabbi Akiva then explains why he's laughing, right? And then there's no reaction. Then there's another Gemara right after. And they're having another walk. And this is the famous one, more famous than the first, where they see a fox walk out of the location of the Kodesh HaKodashim. And everybody sees the fox and they start to cry. How can a fox go in the Kodesh HaKodashim? Shoalim yelchu bo. Terrible, terrible, terrible. They're all crying. And again, Rabbi Akiva is laughing. So a second time he laughs when they cry, and they ask him, why are you laughing, why are you crying? And he explains that I'm laughing because I'm so happy, because if this happened, if the destruction could happen, then that was prophesied. So the prophecy that'll be rebuilt is also going to happen. And then here's the interesting thing. The Gemara concludes, and this is literally the last words of Maseches Makos. So if you've ever been to a seam in Maseches Makos, you've heard this. That's why it's so familiar to people. It says, Nichamtanu Akiva Nichamtanu. Right? You consoled us. So everybody wonders, why does it say it twice? Why does it say it twice? Right? And why was nothing said after the first time? So, I thought to say that it's because like Rabbi Akiva's style, his sort of interpretive style and how he did things is he changed the moment, right? Like everybody's sad and everybody's depressed and everybody's upset.
He changed the response to the moment.
He would change the response to the moment. And he says, no. Like you can laugh at this and here's why. And here's why. And he explained to them and he rationalized his understanding. And like after the first story, they're not convinced. After the first story, they think he's a nut job. Like they don't think, but then he does it twice. And they see this is a style, an interpretive style, which works. And so after the second story, and only after the second story, does he say, Nichamtanu, they say it twice, because they figure out, oh, Rabbi Akiva, this is your thing, and this works. So like, I always thought that was pshat, and that was what that Gemara is about. But you're saying that there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, Rabbi Akiva is like, he's the man. He's the CBT man, which we'll talk about. I mean, we always kind of talk about him as the quintessential optimist,
right? Which
kind of goes hand in hand. If you're able to channel your thoughts to be as positive as possible, then you're going to be as an expert at refuting your thoughts, which is something we'll talk about in a few minutes, and therefore be very optimistic.
Right.
Right. So that's
so
great.
Can we get to the CBT business?
Yeah, let's get to the CBT business.
Because everybody talks about CBT.
So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is a very popular treatment for all sorts of things, including anxiety. Before we get into, the meat of what we're going to do together, just a couple of kind of key elements of CBT for anxiety. First of all, something that is an important part of the treatment is externalizing it. You're kind of naming it as your anxiety. It's not part of you. It's not part of who you are. It's almost this like external false alarm. We even sometimes have clients, especially kids, name the anxiety, like give it a name. And to remind ourselves that when we're having that worry, it's just Mr. Anxiety trying to bother us. It's not anything that's inherently harmful. It's just this worry reaction that is trying to kind of get us to, stop our day and have to do things that get in the way of things.
How does that help? How does that help?
How does externalizing
Yeah.
help? Because it reminds us that
It's not me.
it's not me. And it's like this, almost like this nag that's trying to bother us. But if we don't pay attention to it and we don't let it bother us, it'll go away. It'll get weaker
I'm
and
thinking
weaker.
a lot about the idea of the Yetzer Hara, right? This idea that in Jewish thought there's the Satan, which really like isn't an outside figure. It's us. You know, we're physical people. We want certain things that we shouldn't have or shouldn't want. But we sort of frame this as the Satan, the bad guy, like the red guy on the shoulder, as this external thing, which is a very similar idea.
Yeah, it is a similar idea.
It's a better way to approach it. It's not me. It's actually this external thing that I now have to combat. Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is interesting. Another important concept is just what we call exposure, but the opposite of it. You're not avoiding what it is that we're anxious about. So I know I'm talking to myself here because I avoid dogs, but if we can face some of our challenges, even if it's in small increments and gradually, facing our fears is really the absolute key to helping us overcome them. And what we're doing when we're facing them in a gradual, systematic way, or together with a therapist, if need be, is we're exposing ourselves to what it is that we're worried about. And therefore, we are showing ourselves that we can handle it in small increments until we really can handle it. So that, that is also key. And sometimes worry comes along with rules. Like if because I'm worried about this, I have to, because I'm worried about what's going to happen with the pandemic, I have to check the news once every 5 minutes. Part of helping ourselves manage the worry is disobeying it and not following the rules. So only allow yourself to check the news twice a day, not every 5 minutes, just because worry is telling you to. So kind of not listening to Mr. Worry over there on your shoulder. So those are some key elements. But then there's also the whole, what we call what we do with our thoughts. We have thoughts. CBT focuses on thoughts. We call them automatic thoughts. They're thoughts that just literally pop into our head. Usually we have a situation which causes a thought, which causes a feeling.
Can we do this with you and dogs?
No, we're going to do this with you and something.
Oh, okay.
But we can if you want to switch it.
Maybe we should.
I'll give you my notes.
No, I mean, but yeah, you're the one who's trained. Okay, fine.
So
maybe we should have a vote. Do they want to talk about your anxieties or my anxieties? Like which one?
This isn't exactly what you do for a phobia. Phobia is really more straight exposure therapy.
Now she said, "Oh no, this is entirely inappropriate therapy."
But we can do it with dogs.
No,
I'm happy. I'm happy to engage with you.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
It's all right.
And just
chicken.
Yeah,
okay.
You want to see chicken, you bring me to a dog and you'll see chicken. I'm not so chicken about.
I'll only see dog. You won't see Malka, that's for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into this because we don't have that much time. I'm not even sure what time it is. But nice some common automatic thoughts fall into different categories according to CBT, which we often call cognitive distortions, which are things like all or none thinking, like things are going to either be good or bad. There's no in between. Mind reading, thinking you know what other people are going to think, are thinking or going to think when you really have no idea. Overgeneralization. So if one bad thing happens, you assume everything is bad. There's lots of categories, but it's those kinds of automatic thoughts that tend to get in our way and cause our thinking to be more negative and more anxiety prone than it has to be. So in the cognitive model with the situation, thought, feeling, what we do is
slow down. Situation, thought, feeling. Okay.
Correct. What we notice most is usually the feeling, right? Because the automatic thought is very automatic. It's like that thought that like pops right into our head and right out of our head and leaves us with a feeling. The feeling is what we notice. Unless we're trained to and we learn to, we don't really notice that automatic thought because it's so fleeting, but it leaves us with that lingering feeling. What we can do is work to deal with the thoughts and to respond to the thoughts differently so that the feeling can then be changed. So that's kind of like the basis of the cognitive model is doing those, is teaching, learning how to. Okay,
so I got something.
You got something? So what you're ready to do? We're
ready to do. Ready to do. All right. So like, as I said before, so I don't, maybe I should get more nervous about things. Maybe it's a problem. But but let's say one of my issues.
Okay, so situation. We're gonna
Situation. I'm a late night snacker. Doesn't have to be like so serious, right?
No, but it should cause a little anxiety if you can think
No,
of
so it bothers me. It
Okay.
bothers me. I'm a late night snacker. And why am I a late night snacker? Because I'm like tired and I'm like, oh, long day and just blah. I just got off the phone, off this meeting, off that thing, and it's late. And then I tell myself that like it's okay, whatever, I can't, and I just like sort of lose control and I'll just eat a whole thing of Pringles. Who's buying Pringles anyway? Like, why are we buying Pringles? There should not be Pringles now.
We've been through this.
Okay, well, whatever, fine. But meaning the what were the three stages?
It's situation,
Right, the
thought,
situation.
feeling.
So thought and feeling.
Okay, so what's the situation?
The situation is I'm like
I don't want a
tired.
general, I want a specific. So
Okay.
think of a specific.
Okay, fine. So the situation is it's late at night and I just like I don't feel good. I'm blah, I'm tired. Everybody is probably asleep. I'm trying to work on something because I procrastinated all day about it and I have to get it done. Good. So I'm sitting working on that thing and I'm blah. That's the situation. Now, the thought is like, you know, I deserve it. I worked so hard today. I deserve it, and it's okay. And it's totally appropriate to eat a whole can of Pringles at 1 o'clock in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have to get up in 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the feeling is like I feel terrible about myself.
No. So okay.
I broke it.
That's fine.
I broke it.
But
that's fine. It's terrible. I was fun.
You just combine two different situations. You combine the situation of I want to eat with I did eat with.
Oh.
We need a situation. I'll give you an example of situation, thought, feeling to help you.
You want to talk about something with me? You don't have to clear it with me first.
No, I'm just gonna think of something. How
about this? I'm really afraid of dogs.
No, a specific situation that happens.
Okay.
In real time.
Yeah.
So the situation is that I'm on the phone with a parent at work today. I have a meeting at 2:30. It's 2:28. The parent is very heated and upset and is going on and on and on. And I have to be at this meeting at 2:30. That's the feeling, right? So the thought is, shoot, how am I going to get off the phone in a, empathic, sensitive way in order to make this meeting? And the feeling is worry.
Okay.
Got it? So it's very specific situation.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm at the meeting. It's me?
No, so you can think of your own, but that was just an example of.
Okay. Fine. I got it. I'm talking to somebody. Maybe this happened within the past week. I'm talking to somebody and I need to speak to Mincha and Marav. And I haven't had the opportunity to prepare.
You're picking the same exact scenario I just picked. Okay, go.
Oh no, exactly same, but it happened to me. It wasn't this week. It was last week. And the problem is, I was running out of time to say Kaddish. I stopped saying Kaddish for my dad last week, and so I knew I was going to daven Mincha for the Amud. So there was a good chance I was going to daven Mincha for the Amud, which means I can't even prepare or think about it during Mincha because I'm too busy davening, right? So what am I going to do? How am I going to be able to salvage time right now while I have somebody in front of me? And then be able to get it done, and the thought is like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a disaster. Okay.
No. The thought is how am I going to prepare what I need to prepare?
Right.
And what's the feeling?
The feeling was I guess just a nervousness.
Nervousness. Okay.
Nervousness.
Okay. So basically, so in that situation, what we would do is we would take. Okay, so we have the situation. It's about to be Mincha. You have to daven for the Amud. You're not going to, and then the thought is, shoot. That's the automatic, quick thought that enters your mind is, shoot. I might not have time to prepare, and then you're left with worry. But if you were able to catch the thought at the thought stage before it got to the worry stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you said to yourself,
okay,
do you really think you wouldn't be able to prepare?
Well, probably. I mean, I guess I listen. It's happened before.
I'm gonna face you.
Okay, fine. So nervous. It's happened before, and in spite of those types of experiences, you make it work. Like the thing you were talking about, you're able to expand upon. You're able to draw something.
You're really good at faking it.
No, God forbid.
No, I was kidding.
My gosh,
he doesn't.
Yeah, I always.
So you have evidence to believe that
I have evidence to believe that this is
a way.
Not really something that I should be worried about. Right.
Because you've done it before.
Right.
Many times.
Right.
Do you have evidence to believe that you would fail miserably at speaking in this situation?
I mean, not a lot. It hasn't really happened, except in nightmares. Like some people have nightmares that like they go to school without pants. Now it's every day in school, right? It's every day in school on Zoom. But some people have nightmares like that. So rabbis, or at least me, I've had nightmares to the effect that I walk into a simcha and I'm asked to speak. And I had no idea. And like, I didn't even know that anybody was, I don't really know anybody there so well. And they're expecting me to speak, and there are like 800 people on the room.
You know what my nightmare is?
What?
That I have guests show up and I didn't know they were coming. That's my nightmare.
Didn't that happen once?
Yeah, but other guests came, so it's okay.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
We're coming anyway. It was like I was
Yeah,
planning.
that's your nightmare?
Yeah, that's my nightmare. That's my recurring nightmare.
Wow.
Is that like guests show up.
So I guess if you fuse those together, our collective nightmare is that guests are going to come we didn't know, and they're going to ask me to speak while wearing pajamas. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody. Fine.
So you have evidence to believe that you would be able to do it successfully.
Yeah. So I should
only in nightmares has it not worked successfully. So you have no evidence to think that it will really
be a disaster. Yeah. And they're going to be like, where did I let her go? Like, call that guy back. Like, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. Yeah. I guess that would be.
Okay. And what would be the worst thing that could happen if it went wrong?
I guess what I just said, like, Rabbi Lerner,
they call him back.
They call him back.
That'd be the worst thing. But before that happens, what would happen when you were up there?
I don't know, because I guess you stammer and yeah, so yeah,
so it would be kind of humiliating.
Yeah, I guess it would be kind of humiliating.
Do you think if you would kind of stammer and it would be humiliating, people would remember it forever? Do you think it would really detrimentally impact your career?
What do you guys think? I think it would be pretty bad.
Would you hold it against him forever?
Rabbi, I don't think that would be a very good thing.
Don't you think every rabbi has at one point in their career?
Well, you don't like that's a whole other level. But okay.
So worst case scenario, you think every congregant would really remember that you once, between Mincha and Marav, when there were 10 people there.
So the answer probably is the best use of the Bernie meme when he's just sitting there like that. The best meme I saw was Bernie waiting for the Dvar Torah between Mincha and Marav to be over. Like that's the best one I saw. Just like, okay, Rabbi, let's just start Marav already. What are you doing anyway? So it's true. No one's listening. Maybe no one's listening. So like, what am I worried about?
Right. So even if worst case scenario happens,
that's it. I'm never preparing again. See ya. No, I'm kidding.
Even if worst case scenario happened, you would be okay. You think that you would come back from it. You would keep your job.
So I'm going to be honest right now, completely honest. This process is so excellent, but it's not my first rodeo. And I think I've gone through this already.
It may not be the best example for you either, because you're not really truly nervous about it.
I'm not truly. I happen to have a high tolerance for nervousness. What I mean is, like, it takes a lot. Usually my nervousness involves something that was my fault, like the procrastination. It's too late. Like I left too late to something, and I'm driving. I can't drive too fast. Like that's where I feel the most tense. Like my gray hairs come from being about to be late for something. Like that's where it comes from, which is not this type of thing. But I totally get what you're saying, and that would work.
And then that's the kind of questioning that you would do. What's the evidence for? What's the evidence against?
So you have to be really rational. You have to take a step outside of yourself and be really rational. And I guess that's why a therapist is such a good thing. Like they help you do that. It's very hard on your own to imagine what it is you're feeling, what you think will be the outcome, what's the impetus for that. I mean, it's really hard to parse this all out.
It is. And a very helpful, effective question often is, if your friend was in this situation, what would you tell them? Because
people are able to answer that.
People are able to answer that
better than they can answer it for themselves.
Yeah, they're able to think like, oh, duh. If my friend was in this situation, I would say, there's really nothing to worry about.
This is the secret. Everybody, CBT comes down to asking for a friend. I'm asking for a friend. Like what? It's not me. It's for a friend. What would I tell somebody who's? But do we even notice the worry? Or is it just worry?
I think we notice the worry. I think what we have to train ourselves to do is notice the thought. Because the thought is really where we intervene. The worry is what we notice and what we're left with and what's uncomfortable.
But what got us there?
And kind of responding to that more effectively and learning to talk back to those thoughts and to refute those thoughts, that's where the work really is.
So this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And that's all I have to say about that, I think.
Really?
Yeah, for now.
Okay, so find the thought, that fleeting thought that got you to the worry, and then critically analyze whether or not that thought is rational. Does it make sense? Are you this actually, this whole CBT thing, is that what it comes down to? Cognitive behavioral therapy is trying to think of the cognition that comes before the behavior, and it's a theory, right? I'm actually,
it's not the entire theory, but that is an important element of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I should. Wow. I could do this. Yeah. So this is good. I mean, I don't know if anybody in the comments wants to share.
What do you want them to share?
An anxiety, meaning a worry that comes from a thought. Because like it's a little personal. You can share it privately.
I mean, if they want to share, they're welcome to. Is there something in the chat actually?
Hold on, I'll check. I think they're just Bernie jokes. This is a good one. How about a chazan having 10 pages to Ne'ilah with 1 minute left to Yom Kippur? That is me. That was me once. I was in, I don't know if anybody has, Ne'ilah, as many times as I've done it, literally does not get any easier for me. Because I forget the pace. You do it once a year. Like, even that, I did a bunch of things a bunch of times this year, but Ne'ilah just once. And so the first year I did it, I went too fast because I was nervous about going along. Every rabbi knows, like the one Avera you can't do is end Shabbos too late. But like the Avera you can't come back from is ending Yom Kippur too late. I mean, everybody's gonna kill you. I remember
that would be a bad worst case scenario.
That would be a bad, yeah. So there was one year that I was up there for Ne'ilah. And I remember, oh my gosh, I went too fast. I have too much time to kill. And Rabbi Lerner's time was whatever it was. And I was, how am I going to kill all this time? And I can't make it look like I'm killing time. And I'm sure some people figured it out. But I stretched out the Avinu Malkeinu, also because Avinu Malkeinu is a fantastic tefillah. But there was time issues as well. And the funny thing is, and I was so nervous about this. I was nervous about ending early, and I was nervous about ending late, and trying to get like the Goldilocks just right. I think
you said some extras out loud or something.
I did some extra. It was a Shabbos, so we only did Avinu Malkeinu once. So like I'm like, I'll just Avinu Malkeinu, I'll stretch it out. Perfect. So here's what happened, and this is such good evidence that my nervousness and my tension was based on a thought that was false. Ready? So I thought that if I end early, I think it was like a lot of years ago, like, oh no, the Rabbi Ismach, the assistant rabbi, he ended Yom Kippur too early. Everybody's blowing shofar over here, and it's just all transgressing, and everybody went from white to scarlet red because he ended Yom Kippur. So I'm thinking about this terrible thing, and then here's what happens. I ended up schlepping it out, fetching it out so that it was perfect. It ended up being perfect, Goldilocks perfect. And then I noticed that the other minyan, they're done Mariv. They're done Mariv already. Forget about Ne'ilah. They're done Mariv, and way before we were. And I asked Rabbi Lerner. I said, Rabbi Lerner, so what happened? What time did you finish? Did you finish at time? He's like, no, it was a couple minutes early. and I said, I'm like, oh, that's okay, fantastic. And then I realized why it's okay. And then but I was a newbie back then, and so yeah, the thought of this is the end of the world as I know it if I end early was exactly incorrect. And like, just relax. So nowadays I err on the side of a little early and a little late, because I know a little late, the grumbling stomachs, it's not a good thing. But okay, that works. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Miriam, for that example, because had you know that was. Oh, Aaron remembers that year. I don't want you to remember that year. Okay, fine. That's the story. Listen, it's really late, everybody. And thank you so much for coming along for this.
Thanks for coming.
For this ride. It's so great to see everybody. It's just great to see you all. And hopefully everybody has a one dose, maybe 2 doses. You're on your way to a dose. It's been such a complicated and convoluted thing, this whole unfolding of the dosing. But in any event, it's great to see you all. Have an amazing, amazing night. Have a great week, and wishing you nothing but the best and as little anxiety as possible. We'll get through this. We'll get through this together. We'll be somewhere at the other end. I don't know when, I don't know where, a light at the end of the tunnel.
It was Gilly, not Miriam, that said that.
Oh, that's okay. It'll be a bright light at the end of the tunnel. It's a dim light, but there's a tunnel and there's an end of the tunnel. There always is an end of the tunnel. And we have to have confidence that that's coming soon. So I hope to see you all soon. It's great to see you all.
Good night, everyone.
And have a good night. Have a good night.